Jake Paul is a clown and Brian is a baby clown. That's what they do. They try to get fame off of other people's victories and things like that. So
when you retire, do you see yourself going the Jake Paul route? I laugh because I don't want to say it, but say it, nigga, say it. You helping everybody else out, so say it, nigga.
Yeah, I would. I would.
Who would the first celebrity you fight? Jake.
Yeah, I fight him for that money. Get him like 190, 98, 200. No, 195, 200. He definitely be in the gym, so I would consider him a boxer. He got to fight a actual fighter now, like a fighter.
Who was somebody you could see him fighting, like
Me.
a real you?
Yeah.
So, who should Jake Paul fight next? He just called out Tank Davis. Honestly, I think he's earned a big fight. Maybe he could take on Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez or even the Mexican monster David Benavidez. It would make for an incredible sports story. Jake's been clear he set this goal for himself and wants to stay true to his word, proving he can make it happen. Tank Davis did respond, though he called Jake a clown chasing money, but added he might fight him down the line.
A lot more than that. I want tougher fighters. I want to be world champion. Zurdo looks slow as shit tonight. That'd be easy work too. Badu Jack. I want everybody. Anthony Joshua, Gervonta, and Tommy, stop running.
After his win over Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., Jake Paul called out Gervonta Tank Davis, declaring he wants to fight the best and become a world champion. Jake didn't hesitate to name top-tier opponents. In response, Tank acknowledged the call-out and recognized Jake's ambition, though many in the boxing world still question whether Jake's ready for that kind of elite challenge.
He was blocking and taking all his shots, but I think he just got tired, and couldn't execute it. So Jake Paul did a great job.
Who should Jake Paul fight next? He just called out Tank.
Yeah, I think he deserves a fight. He can fight Zurdo Ramirez, or he can fight the Mexican monster, David Benavidez.
You won that fight.
Yeah, he deserves to fight all these guys. I think it will be a great fight, and I think he did good. He deserves an opportunity to fight for the world title.
And what would happen if he fought David?
What was that?
What would happen if he fought David?
Well, I think David's in another. I think David's in another level, but let's give this guy an opportunity to fight for a world title.
Jose Benavidez Sr., respected trainer and father of David Benavidez, voiced strong support for Jake Paul following his latest performance. He said Jake looks sharp and deserves a shot at top-tier opponents, whether it's Tank Davis or even his own son. In his view, this new wave of competition, mixing entertainment and legit talent, is good for the sport.
What up, fight fans? Now, Gervonta Davis just called out Jake Paul after Jake Paul had his fight with Mike Tyson. Now, we all know that Gervonta Davis is a beast of a boxer, and skill-wise, he's a lot better than Jake Paul. Would it be smart to pair those two up in a fight? Would Jake Paul be too big for Gervonta Davis? What do you guys think?
Jake Paul's win over Chavez Jr. didn't just elevate his name, it officially shifted his standing. According to Boxing Kingdom, a victory would place Jake in the top 15 cruiserweights into major sanctioning bodies that, ranking less champions, fight him as a voluntary defense, and Jake brings serious money with his commercial pull. Jake now has real leverage in boxing, while Tank Davis is a pound-for-pound elite. Jake's influence off the canvas through media, marketing, and brand power is turning him into a major player in both boxing and business.
In a ceremony that I was doing, he said that you have to become world champion to inspire so many kids and create an amazing sports story. And so I set that goal for myself, and I want to be impeccable with my word and stay committed and prove to myself that I can do this and become world champion in the world's hardest sport in roughly 6 to 7 years. Because I think it can be one of the most relatable and inspiring sports stories of all time, and no one thought it was possible. Nobody. Look, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, people laughed at me. I'm gonna lose to fucking Gibb, then Nate Robinson, then Ben. Come on. So at the end of the day, that's my why, and I'm dead set on becoming world champion.
Jake Paul insists this journey is about more than just winning fights. It's about building a lasting sports legacy. He said it himself. He wants to create an unforgettable story, from his controversial internet fame to a ranked pro boxer. Jake's turned doubters into believers and committed fully to his goal.
Did Jake Paul take more from this fight as a boxer and Tommy Fury's fight or this fight? What do you reckon he loved more?
I think he said it best in there himself. When he fought Tommy Fury, he wasn't even a boxer yet. He was learning how to box, right? Now, 2.5 years later, he's a true boxer. The loss to Tommy Fury is the greatest gift in Jake Paul's life. Had he beaten Tommy Fury, which was a split decision loss, right? Not a unanimous, not a majority, a split decision loss, he wouldn't be the fighter that he is today. Thank you, Tommy.
Do you think expect Jake Paul fight in November, December time? Is we'll see about that?
Yeah, November or December is the time that he'd like to do it.
Jake Paul's manager reflected on how far Jake has come, especially since the Tommy Fury fight. Back then, Jake was still raw but took the challenge head on. Now, he's improving with every bout. The manager revealed that plans are already forming for Jake's return later this year, possibly by November or December, with Gervonta Davis among the possible names.
But Jake was impressive. You know, surprisingly, he was impressive. He's definitely improving. You know, he got a good team with him and working on some things. But, you know, to become an elite fighter, it's like, bro, it's miles away from where, you know, they can comprehend. You feel me? And so I'm just watching the evolution. You know what I mean? But I see a lot of things from my optics. You know, every time I, you know, break it down, I'm not being critical. I'm just telling you the truth. You know what I mean? His jab looked good today, you know, but he knew the guy wasn't throwing nothing back. So when you letting your hands go and you know nothing's coming back, you kind of get comfortable, you know. So when you're going up against better fighters, they not only gonna let their hands go, but when you throw yours, they coming back with something. So, you know, Chavez didn't bring that to the game. He didn't bring that to the table. But Jake looked good tonight. The body work was good. But what I liked was his composure. He didn't get wild. He didn't get out of control, swinging wild and just fighting. He stayed composed. He stayed in his form. And that is evolution in the boxing game. He was more technical than that.
Jake's performance against Chavez Jr. earned praise from several in the boxing world. Rising star Ryan Garcia tweeted, "Jake did his thing. Outboxed Chavez Jr. That kind of recognition from a legitimate contender speaks volumes." Meanwhile, veteran Antonio Tarver acknowledged Jake's improvement, but cautioned against rushing into elite fights too soon. There's still a gap to close.
That Jake Paul might actually fight Gervonta Tank Davis. This can't be real. When it came up a couple of months ago, I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to cover this because there's no way it's real. There's no way they're really going to do that because it makes no sense. Why would you do that for him? Outside of it, like, okay, you can look at it like an exhibition, which it will be, and we'll take a look at some of the rule set for it. But Gervonta Davis is one of, if not the best, biggest names at 135 pounds and is an active in his prime fighter. I don't want to hear the similar to Floyd and Logan thing because at that point, Floyd was retired. Floyd had done all he needed to do in the sport. Tank is still in his prime, still has multiple high-level opponents that he needs to fight. And you can say, oh, you know, the Jake would be a one-off. Side quest. That's fine, but that just tells me that Tank doesn't care about being a high-level champion in the sport anymore. It tells me that he's done competitively in the sport. If he takes a fight with Jake Paul, it tells me he's done. And that's unfortunate. Yeah, Tank has been talking about retirement, but if he goes this route, it's almost certain. Like, it's pack it up. It's over with. Because the fight makes no sense. It doesn't even make sense for Jake. For all the things Jake's talking about doing, it makes no sense for him. Again, money, sure. If it makes dollars make sense, okay, fine. But I want to see Jake in competitive matchups where I am interested in the outcome. I'm not interested in this. I'm not interested in the outcome of this. I was interested in Floyd versus Logan because there was an idea that Floyd was a little slower, a little older, and Logan would be able to knock him out. If Jake knocks Tank out, so what? What does that do for him? Because he said he could beat Canelo. He said he could beat Anthony Joshua. This one to me, like, I've gotten on board with a lot of Jake fights because they've made sense. Right? To me, they've made sense. Even Julio Cesar Chavez, after he's already beaten the guy that beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., he beat Anderson Silva.
Many in the boxing community believe a Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis fight lacks competitive credibility. Tank is still in his prime. Facing elite opponents in his weight class, they argue Jake, despite his progress, hasn't yet proven he belongs on that level. It's a step too far at least for now.
I would love to see Tank fight Jake Paul. I would love to see Tank show how unskilled he is and too small for the unexperienced Jake Paul, who will be too big for him, pause, and use his size and beat the out of Tank. He always tweet about, type about, got something to say, like he really running shit, but he stays little ass at that lightweight class, but being the bigger, smaller dude that can only beat the smaller dudes. And unfortunately, I would love to see the Tank fans looks on their face as they pull a mask off and all the rabies and all the disinfection disease, they've been clogged up their brains and their ears and shit over the years watching Jake Paul beat the fuck out of the small version of the wannabe hype job that's not skilled enough to use his size and speed. I want the fight. They both fight in the same lane. They content creators. They circus acts and stuff. So Tank would be right up his alley fighting a Jake Paul. I'm for it. So let's push for the fight. I got Jake Paul beating the tall shit out of Tank because Tank's not skilled enough to actually beat Jake Paul.
On the other side, some fans believe Jake Paul might actually pose a threat. His size and improving skills could be a real challenge for Davis, who fights in much lighter divisions. While Davis has the power, speed, and IQ, stepping up to fight someone as big as Jake comes with serious risks.
For a world champion, he is the most experienced fighter I've fought to date, and it's going to be a really good test of my skills. And depending on the performance that I put on, the sanctioning bodies in boxing will give me a ranking, and once I have that ranking, I'm able to go and fight for a world title. So this can set me up to become world champion and to be able to attain and get a world championship fight down. Yeah, I think a lot about inspiring the next generation. That's a big part of the reason I'm still so adamant about becoming world champion, because it will prove to kids that they can go into something at zero and make it all the way to the top in 6 to 7 years time if they fully set their mind to it. So
Jake Paul has said repeatedly that he's chasing more than belts, he's chasing impact. Fighting Chavez Jr. wasn't just about a famous last name, it was a smart move. Jake wants to show that anyone can rise from nothing and make it to the top, even in a brutal sport like boxing. He's writing a story, not just fighting matches.
Jake Paul is unequivocally the most successful fighter in history 4 years in. No one comes close. No one. You couldn't list one that comes close, including Brock Lesnar if you include his WWE career. 4 years in terms of what he's done in terms of box office, pay-per-view, impact, helping other boxers, because he had platform, he had awareness, and he's got the focus and discipline to drive with it.
Despite Jake's dominant win, some fans still question the fight's legitimacy. Critics on social media claim Chavez Jr.'s lack of offense looks suspicious. One tweet said, "No way a real boxer sat back 8 rounds and only started punching when it was too late looked rigged." Beyond the fight, Jake has revolutionized boxing promotion using viral content, streaming at his own platform to spotlight other fighters and events. His impact goes beyond the ring.
Your thoughts on Tank Davis?
Man, he's a great fighter. He's He's surprised me a couple of times. We've had some word exchanges.
Yes.
But it's all for fun. I hope this fight with Ryan Garcia happens.
Who you leaning on?
It's a 50-50 fight, in my opinion. You know, Gervonta hasn't shown the ability to win a lot of rounds against taller fighters, and then he relies on the knockout in the later rounds, which has worked for him. But if Ryan could avoid that, I think it'll be his power and speed will be and range will be a problem for Gervonta. But if Ryan gets caught, we see what Luke Campbell did.
Yeah.
And Gervonta is obviously a way bigger puncher than Luke. So it's really, in my eyes, the fight could go either way.
Jake Paul responded to Davis's comments with maturity instead of firing back. He said, "He's a great fighter. He surprised me a couple of times." It was a classy and respectful response that showed Jake understands the skill Tank brings to the ringing that he's not just about hype.
So Jake Paul said him and Tank were in negotiations to actually fight. Jake Paul would have probably knocked Tank out. Like, we gotta be honest here. The fight was gonna be at 195, and which means Jake Paul cannot come over the weight limit of 195. I think he could have made that weight. I don't know where it would have been. I don't know any more stipulations. It said it was gonna be a normal boxing match, and where Jake Paul probably would have beat the shit out of Tank Davis. I'm gonna call cap. I don't think Tank would have actually fought Jake Paul. Tank is scared to fight, somebody at 140. I don't see him fighting somebody 195, 200 plus pounds. That's just ridiculous. That's unrealistic. I don't think Tank is taking that type of risk. Now, I know a lot of you guys like, oh, Jake sucks. Tank is this, Tank is that. When you're that much larger than a man, your boxing ability goes out the window. It just really does not matter how much of a boxer you are. The guy is way larger than you. Like, I don't think Gervonta could do anything to even reach his face. He's 6'1". But you guys let me know, man. Who would y'all have if Jake Paul and Tank Davis fought? Like I said, I'm putting all my money on Jake.
Online critics have begun questioning Gervonta Davis's appetite for risky fights at 140 pounds. Some fans suggest Tank tends to avoid high-stakes opponents and might not want to face someone as unconventional and potentially dangerous as Jake Paul, even if it's a high-profile bout.
Yeah, you're seeing what I'm seeing. Tank Davis versus Jake Paul. I don't buy it for a second, but apparently they were in negotiations to have this fight happen if Tank Davis beat his previous opponent, which obviously ended in a draw. Which means he's obviously going to go and rematch Lamont Roach in his next fight. But come on, Tank Davis versus Jake Paul. Jake Paul is a cruiserweight / heavyweight. Tank Davis is a lightweight. This is Jake Paul's mindset. Okay, I'll fight a legit professional boxer, OAP. I'll fight a legitimate professional boxer who's his age, loses. Okay, I'll fight another professional boxer who's half his weight. Honestly, I don't care how big Jake Paul is, I genuinely do think that Tank Davis would beat Jake Paul. I think Tank Davis would be too fast, too slick, outbox him, move around. He wouldn't knock him out, obviously. I don't think he'd knock him out because of how big Jake Paul is, but he would outbox him 100%. But anyway, guys, let me know what you guys think about this potential fight. I really hope it does not happen because Jake Paul needs to fight a legitimate pro who isn't a taxi driver, who isn't old, and isn't half his weight.
Before a Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis fight can truly be considered, Tank is unfinished business. A rematch with Lamont Roach appears likely, and many believe that fight must happen first. It's a step that can't be skipped before crossing into these crossover bouts.
Gervonta Davis is not a top 5 pound-for-pound fighter right now. He's arguably not even in the top 10 pound-for-pound right now. Despite how cool this picture is, it does not get him into the pound-for-pound list. Even though we could say that he could probably beat everyone in the lightweight division, even though I think he loses to Shakur, he hasn't done it, and he probably isn't going to do it. But what would it take for him to get to the #1 pound-for-pound spot? Let's go over what he would have to do to reach #1. Well, first off, he'd obviously have to go undisputed in the lightweight division. And even though that would be great, I think that only cracks him like #4. Because the only one in the top 10 pound-for-pound in the lightweight division is maybe Shakur. But realistically, he's gonna have to do more than just go undisputed in the lightweight division. So obviously, he'd have to go up to 140 because there's no way he's making 130. And then he'd have to beat a dude like Teofimo, and he'd probably have to beat Devin Haney as well. And I think that could probably get him the #1 spot. But yeah, we can sit here and say Tank is one of the best pound-for-pound fighters right now, which I think he's one of the most talented, and I think he could do most of what I said. However, hypotheticals aren't going to work with pound-for-pound listing.
Some analysts believe that Tank Davis moving up in weight could unlock a whole new chapter in his career. It would test his versatility and open the door to unique matchups. A fight with Jake Paul wouldn't just be about the spectacle, it would show Tank can hang across weight classes.